Save Me sends their support and good wishes to you, and I know Brian Ray, who's central, of course, to that initiative, heart and soul alongside you all, and sends his greetings to you for all the hard work you're doing. One of the things I said on a number of occasions on the social media recently about this tremendous event is the array of talented people with different talents, different skills, different perspectives coming together. And that not only sends a message out generally to the nation, to politicians, but also it's good for us, isn't it? It's rather cathartic to come together amongst friends, colleagues and comrades to share views, ideas and strategies for the way forward. Because there is a way forward here. There is work to be done. And can I encourage everyone here who come from different perspectives, with different experiences, with different approaches, with different aspects of knowledge about protecting our wildlife from wherever it may be. You all take an opportunity of talking to each other. Because that cross-fertilisation of knowledge, experience, tactics, information and abilities will serve us all well in the future fights we have, protecting different aspects of wildlife throughout this country. What we need to be careful about is the propaganda that's put out by government, often of different perspectives, against people like us fighting for wildlife. But more importantly, the propaganda put out against wildlife. We have heard about Project Fear. I'm not going to talk to you about the European elections. I'll leave Dominic to do that. I'm not going to give you a broadcast on how you should vote. But what I'm saying to you is that we all know now about Project Fear and the way politicians from different perspectives and different persuasions attempt to frighten us to do and think in certain ways. There is a great groundswell of opinion in this country which is getting more and more anti-establishment. I don't fear that, and I don't think it is wrong. And when one sees criticisms of people who have the temerity to challenge those in authority as being people who in some way should not be listened to, when I hear that, as far as I'm concerned, I don't listen to them who say it, because we all have a voice. Please do not be put off by Project Fear when it comes, for instance, to badgers. An example of Project Fear was what George Eustace, yes I did say Eustace, said a few months ago when he referred to a reservoir of disease in the wildlife population. That's the sort of statement, the sort of comment, the sort of rhetoric that creates fear in the community, that creates fear amongst people, stops them thinking, makes them afraid, which results in the victimization of wildlife. I'm here for a short period of time on behalf of Save Me to talk to you fundamentally about badgers. I know other colleagues at Save Me, Nigel for instance at the back, will later be talking to you about other things. But on that wide subject of victimisation and Project Fear, be in no doubt that Project Fear runs through the veins of many politicians in this country. And it's not just restricted to general elections, when the country was frightened to vote in a certain way. And it is not just limited to referendums, when whatever your perspective, people are attempting to frighten you to vote in other ways. Politicians, and particularly senior politicians in government, will frighten you and attempt to frighten this country into their views about wildlife. Frightening you, for instance, that foxes creep into people's homes in the dead of night and attack children. Frightening you, for instance, that badgers spread TB. Fear the urban fox, fear the badger. Well, I'm here, hopefully, to persuade, and I don't think I have to persuade many people who are gathering, but if there are people generally that are taking an interest in what we have to say, I'm here to persuade people, put to one side Project Fear, Put to one side what the politicians in government now are trying to do in relation, for instance, to the badger cull, and frighten us all into believing that these animals should be killed without any scientific basis, without any logic and without any understanding, and perhaps just as importantly, without any effect upon controlling TB in cattle. Put to one side Project Fear. Wildlife generally is abused in this country, and when I hear people say to me, we are a country of animal lovers, we are a country of many animal lovers, but we are not a country of animal lovers. There are examples in this country of abuse of animals, be they wildlife or domestic, that chill me. And they chill me as one who spent 30 years as a barrister doing some pretty chilling and frightening cases. And yet I see what we do to wildlife and domestic animals in this country, and I realise we have a long way to go. We put our wildlife in zoos to be gawped at. We put our wildlife in circuses to be ridiculed. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, before I do, I promise you, move on more specifically to the badger cull. It sickens me again to see how certain people in Parliament and outside try to protect circuses and the exploitation of wildlife within those circuses. And okay, I hear the arguments often, these poor animals know nothing other than domestic incarceration. Shame that that's the only thing they know. That is not a reason or an excuse, it is in fact a condemnation. So let's remember, Project Fear should not work at all whenever we exercise our franchise. And Project Fear should certainly not work. Project Fear about reservoirs of disease. Why do you think members of Parliament, ministers use such expressions as reservoirs of disease? We're not fools. Those expressions are used simply to get people riled up and afraid. The problem is, of course, is that that's all people that are apologists for the badger cull have. Rhetoric and blood-curdling remarks. Do not be afraid of that. Let's replace Project Fear when it comes to wildlife and animal welfare with compassion, hope, generosity, and common sense. And when it comes to common sense, let's hold on to that when we think about the badger killing in this country. Badger culling in England costs around £7,000 per badger. Per badger killed. Compare that to the experiences in Wales. By that I don't mean the England 2-1 defeat of Wales, but the experiences in Wales where they have a badger vaccination programme, which costs around £700 per badger vaccinated. Now these are significant differences if we want to talk finance, if we want to talk reality, and if we want to talk how the badger issue is dealt with. But it's not just the facts. I'll try and keep them to a minimum in the last few minutes that I'm going to have with you. But it's also the experts. Now, I think it's right. We should treat experts' opinion with a healthy dose of scepticism, because some experts have used their title as experts to perhaps browbeat us in the past as to how we may think. And so again, as right-minded members of the public, we need to critically assess what experts say. But when an esteemed individual such as Lord Krebs, a renowned scientific advisor, has continually said rolling out culling as a national policy to control TB in cattle is not credible, and he's one of a number of people who have expressed such views, it's time for us and government to take that seriously. Perhaps one of the things that Lord Krebs and others was thinking about when he made that comment was the appalling effect of perturbation. You all know, those involved closely with the badger culling issue, what I mean by that, but effectively the social disintegration of the badger population spread over a wide area, not controlling any attempt to assist with vaccination, or not controlling any perceived risk, although that is not accepted, but simply, according to the scientists, if risk exists, if it exists, only making it worse. Over 30 serious experts that have spoken and advised the government, have all said this issue, the badger cull, is, quote, according to Sir John Beddington, simply this: a costly distraction. And that is what it is. We could go into more detail, and perhaps detail better held to private conversations as we walk around the stalls today. But the devastating effect on the general badger population of the risk of shooting, for instance, pregnant sows, those lactating sows whose destruction leads to the starvation of dependent cubs. There are issues beyond the headlines in this matter which again deserve analysis, deserve something beyond Project Fear, deserve something beyond George Eustis's blood-curdling references to reservoirs. We're not interested in that. We're interested in the facts. We're interested in what is best for our wildlife, and we're interested in what is effective. The 3 pilot culls in Gloucester, Somerset and Dorset since 2013 have cost £30 million. £30 million. And for what? Hardly any badger has been tested positively as a carrier of bovine TB. £7 million of that is spent on extra policing. Don't we think that the police have better things to do than to police a useless and unscientific experiment? And you know what? I suspect the police think that too. This is the reality of the badger cull. This is the reality of what is going on. And then we have the sideshows. The sideshows of hedgehogs versus badgers. I nearly made it slip the tongue there, I was just about to say barristers. Hedgehogs versus badgers. What a sideshow that is. These amazing creatures have coexisted side by side for thousands of years. Why is it now suddenly in Project Fear that the hedgehogs are brought up as being the victims of badgers, and the badgers now need to be substantially eliminated because of it? It's Project Fear all over again. Hedgehogs on statistical analysis are declining in areas where badgers hardly exist. Hedgehogs are thriving in areas where badgers do exist. Urban hedgehogs are unaffected where badgers don't exist. The science is not there, but the rhetoric is. The reality is there, but so, according to the politicians, is the fear which they use to cloud that reality. I'll conclude. I started by saying we are effectively a community of people who care for wildlife. We are also a community of people who care for animals generally. Spare some of your time more widely, if you can, to think of that. The appalling examples of breed-specific legislation, which condemns dogs simply because of how they look. These animals may well not be wildlife, although I see many are here to support us. They may not be wildlife, but they are abused. Join the campaigns to stop that abuse as well. And there are a number of organisations, again, that you can become involved with. And can I commend one, Born Innocent, and there is a representative of that organisation moving amongst you now, if you are interested in that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please understand I am honoured to be here and to be asked by Nigel to speak to you on behalf of Save Me. Honoured to have the opportunity of genuinely and from my heart telling you what I have fought and campaigned for in different ways for over 25 years. The grey hair may dictate that I may not have 25 more to work on, but whatever amount of years I have left, I will carry on fighting for all animals, wildlife and domestic. Thank you. I feel like singing now, but I won't.
Thanks, John. Excellent speech. Don't know who's talking about hair for. Do you reckon he's older than me?